It was 3 o'clock before I rode over the ridge onto the Isle, St. Louis. I had wasted enough time, and now I had to find the violin. But as soon as I approached Nikki's house, I saw something was wrong. The windows were empty. All the drapery had been pulled down, and yet the place was full of light, as if the candles were burning inside. Rogers couldn't have taken possession on the flat yet. Not enough time had passed to assume that Nikki had met with foul play. Quickly I went up over the roof and down the wall to the courtyard window and saw that the drapery had been stripped away. The room was in total disarray. Every book had been pulled off its shelf, and some of the books were in fragments, pages broken out. Even the music had been emptied sheet by sheet onto the carpet, and all the pictures were lying about on the tables with other small possessions. Money, keys. Perhaps the demons had wrecked the place and they took Nikki. But who had lighted all these candles? It didn't make sense. I listened. No one in the flat. Or so it seemed. But then I heard not thoughts, but tiny sounds. I narrowed my eyes for a moment, just concentrating, and it came to me that I was hearing pages turn. And then something being dropped. More pages turning, stiff old parchment pages. Then again, the book dropped. I raised the window as quickly as I could. The little sounds continued, but no scent of human, no pulse of thought. Yet there was a smell here, something stronger than the stale tobacco and the candle wax, the smell of vampires carried from the cemetery. More candles in the hallway, candles in the bedroom, and the same disarray. Books open as if they lay in careless piles, the bedcloths snarled, the pictures in a heap, cabinets emptied, drawers pulled out, and no violin anywhere. I managed to note that. And those little sounds coming from another room, pages being turned very fast. Whoever he was, and of course, I knew who he had to be. He did not give a damn that I was there. He had not even stopped to take a breath. I went farther down the hall and found myself staring right at him as he continued with his task. It was Armand, of course. Yet, I was hardly prepared for the sight he presented here. Candle wax dripped down the marble bust of Caesar, followed over the brightly painted countries of the world globe, and the books they lie in mountains on the carpet, save for those of the very last shelf in the corner where he stood, in his old rags still, hair full of dust, ignoring me as he ran his hands over page after page, his eyes intent of the words before him, his lips half open, his expression like that of an insect in its concentration as it chews through a leaf. Perfectly horrible he looked, actually. He was sucking everything out of the books. Finally, he let one drop and took another down and opened it and started devouring it in the same manner, fingers moving down the sentences with preternatural speed, and I realized he had been examining everything in the flat in this fashion, even the bed sheets and curtains, the pictures that had been taken off their hooks, the contents of cupboards and drawers. But from the books, he was taking concentrated knowledge. Everything from Caesar's Galactic Wars to the modern English novels lay on the floor. But his manner wasn't the entire horror. It was the havoc he was leaving behind, the utter disregard of everything he used, and his utter disregard of me. He finished his latest book and broke off from it and went to the old newspaper stacked on a lower shelf. I found myself backing out of the room and away from him, staring numbly at his small, dirty figure. His auburn hair shimmered despite the dirt in it. His eyes burned like two lights. Grotesque he seemed, among the candles and the swimming colors of the flat, this filthy waif of the netherworld and yet his beauty held sway. He hadn't needed the shadows of the Notre Dame or the torchlight of the crypt to flatter him, and there was a fierceness in him in this bright light that I'd never seen. I felt an overwhelming confusion. He was both dangerous and compelling. I could have looked on him forever, but an overpowering instinct said, "Get away. Leave the place to him if he wants it." What does it matter now? The violin. I tried desperately to think about the violin, to stop watching the movement of his hands over the words in front of him, the relentless focus of his eyes. But these things were putting me in a trance. I turned my back on him and went into the parlor. My hands were trembling. I could hardly endure knowing he was there. I searched everywhere and didn't find the damn violin. What could Nicky have done with it? I couldn't think. Pages turning. Paper crinkling. Soft sound of the newspaper dropping to the floor. Go back to the tower at once. I went to pass the library quickly, when without warning his soundless voice shot out and stopped me. It was like a hand touching my throat. I turned and I saw him staring at me. "Your silent children, do they love you?" That was what he asked. I felt the blood rise to my face. The heat spread over me like a mask as I looked at him. All the books in the room were now on the floor. He was a haunt standing in the ruins, a visitant from the devil he believed in. Yet his face was so tender, so young. The dark trick never brings love, you see. It only brings the silence. His voice seemed softer in its soundlessness, clearer. The echo dissipated. We used to say it was Satan's will, that the master and the fledgling not seek comfort in each other. It was Satan. It was Satan who had to be served after all. Every word penetrated me. Every word was received by a secret, humiliating curiosity and vulnerability. But I refused to let him see this. Angrily I said, "What do you want of me?" It was shattering something to speak. I was feeling more fear of him at this moment than ever, and I hate those who make me feel fear. Those who know things that I need to know and who have the power over me. "Is it like not knowing how to read, isn't it?" he said out loud. "And your maker, the outcast, Magnus, what did he care for your ignorance? He did not tell you the simplest things, did he?" Nothing in his expression moved as he spoke. "Hasn't it always been this way? Has anyone ever cared to teach you anything?" "You're taking these things from my mind," I said. I was appalled. I saw the monastery where I had been as a boy, the rows and rows of books that I could not read. Gabrielle bent over her books, her back to us all. "Stop this," I whispered. It seemed the longest time had passed. I was becoming disoriented. He was speaking again, but in silence. "They never satisfy you, the ones you make. In silence, the estrangement and the resentment only grow." I willed myself to move, but I wasn't moving. I was merely looking at him as he went on. "You long for me, and I for you, and we alone in this realm are worthy of each other. Don't you know this?" The toneless words seemed to be stretched, amplified, like a note on the violin drawn out forever and ever. "This is madness," I whispered. I thought of all the things he had said to me, what he had blamed me for, the horrors the others had described, that he had thrown his followers into the fire. "Is it madness?" he asked. "Go then, to your silent ones. Even now they say to each other what they cannot say to you." "You're lying," I said. "And time will only strengthen their independence. But learn for yourself. You will find me easily enough when you want to come to me, after all. Where can I go? What can I do? You have made me an orphan again." "I didn't," I said. "Yes, you did," he said. "You did it. You brought it down." Still, there was no anger. "But I can wait for you to come. Wait for you to ask the questions that only I can answer." I stared at him for a long moment. I did not know how long. It was as if I couldn't move, and I couldn't see anything else but him, and the great sense of peace I'd known in Notre Dame. The spell he cast was again working. The lights of the room were too bright. There was nothing else but light surrounding him, and it was as if he were coming closer to me, and I to him. Yet neither of us was moving. He was drawing me towards him. I turned away, stumbling, losing my balance, but I was out of the room. I was running down the hallway, and then I was climbing out of the back window and up onto the roof. I rode as if he were chasing me, and my heart didn't stop its frantic pace until I had left the city behind.